Well, Benjamin, greetings.
Thank you.
And do you go by Benjamin or Ben?
Doesn't matter either one.
Either one. Very good. My brother's name is Benjamin, so it's a familiar name. Well, I appreciate you taking some time to talk with me tonight. We have not really met before, but through the gift of the internet and perhaps the working of spirit, we've connected over these last months. I've been very moved by much of what you've shared in social media. It really feels like your heart is opening. So you just seem like the perfect person to talk about love with. So I wonder where you might like to start. Sometimes when I've interviewed people, they've wanted to talk about kind of their early life, what they learned about love. Others want to get right into kind of how love is calling them right now. I wonder what part of your story you might want to begin with.
For me, it's sort of, I guess when I was not a kid, I don't remember a kid, but I've always, loved helping people, charity. And, I grew up in, in the other branch, the two branches of the church that I belong to, and I grew up in the other one. But I've
So you grew up in the general church?
Yeah.
In Pennsylvania or other part of the country?
Minnesota.
Minnesota, okay.
And then I grew up in Minnesota and then went to Pennsylvania for a couple of years and lived there, but then came back to Minnesota, and then just there's no general church branch out here. It's just the other branch. Anyway, so, but and I always, love to charity, love all that stuff about charity, and just, but it wasn't until a couple of years ago when I started working my own life and seeing how the love has to come, not burning out, but starting to feel like it was very one-sided, and changing the one-sided to how can I love other people. Start by loving yourself, and start by working on what you've done and what you do and how you do it. It's all about you. And I think the faith I grew up in, in Swedenborg, he talks a lot about. I'm learning now. He's talking a lot. That's what he's saying. It's people getting into what? No, it's not about anything. It's not about the building. Not about the building you're in. It's about you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You are that vessel, and you need to slowly work on that vessel. Mm-hmm. That's your job.
That's your job, to change ourselves within. So that turning happened for you just a couple of years ago?
Yeah.
You know what started it, or was it just God moving in your life?
God moving in my life, starting to get, like I said, burned out from people pleasing, majority of it, and just couldn't. I wanted to be helpful and charitable, and working with kids also helps brilliantly a lot, by the way. But just wanted to help them, but it was also like I can't help them if I'm not helping. I had years and years ago when I started. I worked at a level 4 school, which is a not violence school, but these kids really need help, and we did a PD for here in Minnesota, and the speaker really spoke to me the idea of like you need to take care of yourself first. This is about you. You cannot do the work, and he talked about education, but it's ministry, whatever it is. You cannot do the work until you really work on yourself, because people are going to need you to be very present, and if you're not present, you're going to lose out on a lot of things. And I think it's always stuck with me. I'm not perfect at being present, but it's a work in progress. Mm-hmm. But for me, that's my motto. You got to stay present with these kids, because I fucking special education, and they need you to stay.
Right in the moment, yeah. And we have so many more resources when we're present in the moment. So you had that idea implanted in you listening to the speaker, and you've been working with children, so that certainly has been encouraging you. What was the experience like of turning that love for others onto yourself? Was it
It's been
immediate? Has it been a process?
It's been a process. It's still ongoing. Like, just yesterday I learned that, it's like I quoted this morning, you're not doing anything wrong. Our brains tell us, oh, we're doing this wrong. This is, I work with kids, so it's like today it's like one of the kids, I'm doing this wrong, so you're not doing it wrong. It's just a process. We just, none of us. I was talking to a colleague. We're all learning together on how to do this stuff. I've training in another week that I have to do. That it's just another process to I've done the training before, but it's nothing I wanted to do again, and it's just like just a process. I'll learn something new this time.
Mhm. Mhm.
You know how to help, and that all that matters, and is trying to help.
Mhm. Being in the present moment and recognizing the process. I like those
Yeah.
two reminders. Yeah, our brains want to put everything in a box and measure it and say, is that right or is that wrong? And it is. I love the way you use natural imagery, because I think of course we're a part of nature too, but looking at trees, and it's so much easier to remember trees are not good or bad. They're not right or wrong. They're just growing. And it's so important to remember that that's what's happening for us as well.
You know, I work. I have somebody. I use this saying. I love it. And it's just trying to put square pegs in round holes, and just we do this in education and everything. We just keep banging people into these conformities. And one of the examples that I use a lot with people I talk to is I was sitting in a Catholic church, weirdest place, but someone invited me, and watching all these young people with the hoods up, and just imagining that that's just not black hearts, but that's just kind of what it is. It's just this is why I was a young adult I'm 46, but I was a young adult years ago, and I remember going to those churches and not feeling the love because they're so involved in, even the church I go to now is so involved in the tradition of the past, and the past isn't. I mean, I'm warning myself. The past isn't healing. You can talk about it. You can go to therapy. You can get help, but you need to really begin to work on. A good friend of mine said, pulling the weeds. It's like this, pulling the layers. You're always gonna find one more layer, and it's like, well, I didn't know that layer was. I didn't know that layer was there. What do I do now? Well, you just keep pulling. That's what I learned yesterday too. Just got to keep pulling these layers, and you can't not be emotional about it because it's
Interesting. So you're comparing. I mean, I agree with you. The past is the past. It's over.
Yeah.
Now we're here in the present. So you sometimes feel like the past, because the church is so tied to traditions which come from the past, that that can be a challenge for it to be in the present. Is that what you're saying? Yeah.
I mean, it's just sort of like, I think I have autism, and a lot of it, upbringing from bullying, whatever you learn how to build shells and stuff. And I've been talking to another friend of ours about this too, is that what do we do here? Because we're at this crossroad where, he and I both preached together this sermon about moving forward. Like, how do you move forward into this stuff? And it was really well received because it's like you can't sitting in chairs and not move. You have to move forward. And something I've always been taught in all the spiritual practices that helped me was just you have to move. You have to move forward. There's no, I'm going to sit here and do nothing for 20 minutes. No, even if you don't do anything, you're still regenerating, whatever you call it, into the next thing.
We're always growing. We're never the same human from minute to minute. And that's such a truth. And sometimes, though, I think maybe because humans get so scared of change, we want to we create these structures that seem unchanging because we feel like it gives us a sense of stability. But you're so right. I mean, certainly Jesus was calling people to change and grow, and all of our spiritual teachers have been in process growing. They've been. Sometimes we get the illusion of stuckness, even though the buildings don't last forever, even though they appear like they might, they also decline over time. Yeah, how to keep changing and growing. What helps you to keep changing and growing?
Just reminding me myself how far I've gone, and just seeing the spiritual fruit. Like years ago, I did a lot of church hopping because I couldn't find, like the church I was in was just like, okay, this is all not working, and now when I stopped church hopping and started finding God in, other things, and finding the writings of our church into other things, and then it's like somebody else is saying the same thing. It's like, I like what he says about this stuff, and it all combined together, and it made us more into personal for me. And then other people I talked to said, you make it personal for yourself, and that's all that matters. And what everybody else says it does. You don't have to follow what they're doing because it doesn't work for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So your church, your search has led you to sort of, sounds like it's led you to see truth in a lot of places. Have you settled in one church or one teaching, or do you see yourself as a member of a more universal church?
More universal church.
Yeah.
But I still, practice what I was born with and just use, still go to that church every Sunday and do technology and worship. But it changed who I am because, a minister named Frank Rose taught me a very interesting point. I know his children, but he taught me a very point that the church is inside of you. So if the church is inside of you, it doesn't matter what building you go to, and that's always been there. For like the church is inside of you, so I can worship. There's a guy. He's a mythological thinker by the name of Emmett Fox, but he didn't really have a church. But I read his stuff like devotedly sometimes, and he said the same thing that Swedenborg said, but also simple for me. So it's like, oh, there's no doctrine, it's inside of you, and he opened me up to this whole idea of like what that was said, maybe simple for me to understand.
Yeah, I love that. I got to meet Frank Rose once. He was a pretty cool guy.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting being a Swedenborgian minister because we believe that, yes, the church is inside you. Yeah. And we have a lot of buildings and we try to, so sometimes it's hard to convey that message entirely. But life is full of contradictions, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So if the church is inside of you, what helps you to feel that church inside of you? Do you have practices?
It's a lot of affirmations, a lot of meditation. I'm just a work in practice. There was a lot of days where it's just a lot of, I think everybody suffers from this body shaming of yourself, like, oh, I did this wrong, I didn't do this right. And like I did 2 days ago with the person I was working with. It's like, he's fine, everything's fine, but you just feel so deflated and full moon, whatever it is. And talking to a family member yesterday, and it's just, you feel deflated. I feel better now because I worked through it, but it's just, there's no. It's just that. It's just reminding yourself that you don't have to do it the way everybody else is doing it, and there's one pathway that you get to be you. Like, I think I posted a couple weeks ago that you are, one of the gifts of the Magi is that you get to be you. It's not,
So simple, so beautiful, and so many humans in our culture miss that wonderful invitation. We're so busy trying to be like everybody else, and and we all struggle. I love that you've articulated that struggle inside of that never enough. We did everything wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, I do feel like I find that my Swedenborgian faith helpful in seeing the tempter there, and as beautiful of an inner church as we might build, that tempter still shows up. I pray one day it might not happen as much, and it happens much less than it used to for me, but it's still, I'm tempted into those mind circles of.
There's a great quote I loved years ago from a church called Unity, which sort of follows what Fox said.
Yeah.
But the sermon, I also we like what they have to say, and I listening to him, and he talked about this is about the Christmas story, but it contains a lot of things. Is that the story of a Christmas and whatever is about what is your manger scene like today? What's going on in your brain? And that's, to me, the magic of what's happening. Is that's the most important thing. Everything else is just very, it's okay to worry about the stuff out in the world. Like I always joke, you can't be the monk sitting there going, I'm going to not worry about the problem, but you have to really, be out there.
Yeah. Yeah. How to have that tending of our inner space while interacting with the outside world.
Yeah.
I often think about monks in caves and think, that sounds pretty nice. Like there's a lot less to deal with. But that's not why we're here. And that's so central to the new church, is that we're really here to be with other people. Do you find that relationships are places that help to nurture your sense of church? Are they challenging?
A lot of what I've learned about relationships, I'm still learning, is that who you meet good or bad, not good or bad. I don't like the words good or bad, but I use them sometimes because easy to describe it. Teach you something about that.
Yeah.
I don't want to be with that person anymore, or that relationship isn't healthy, so I'm not going to, and it helps you to see, like, I'm involved in church politics sometimes. It just happens.
Yeah.
The roles I'm in, and you're like, wait, so like an example, like I wasn't being heard one time, and it's just like somebody mentioned, you're not being heard, but that's okay because what that's teaching you is you got to love that person for where they are right now in their church and their community, and you have to come together and find some common ground. It doesn't mean you have to like them, but you have to love them, and that's, I think, a very, very tough. And the other thing I've learned is you have to love yourself first before you can love your neighbor, and that's, I think, one of the weirdest teachings, because I think it's opposite. You got to love your neighbor first. No, you got to love you, and then you can go love that neighbor who is your your spiritual self. And it's just, you can't, if you do it the other way, it's just happened to me is you just get burned out because you're just trying to let people like you and want people to look at you in this.
Yeah, that's so insightful. When we don't love ourselves first and we don't really have anything to give. So we're actually kind of loving to get something often.
Yeah.
We're kind of loving so that we can fill a need. Exactly. But when we can feel that love in our own selves first, then it sort of can radiate out, and we don't really need anything from people. We can just be open. And it's so important. And it's a place where I think our tradition has gotten it a little screwy sometimes because we're so focused on usefulness that I think it can be, we can kind of, and we're so focused on, we don't want to be selfish. Like that's the worst thing, is to be selfish. And so I think recognizing that self-love is very different than selfishness. And it's actually kind of selfish if we're loving people to get things for ourselves. So important, such an important.
And that's one I think that for me is, I've always been people younger than me, one of my passions is why younger people don't join this church, because they feel that, they know that. I mean, they're the teen group, not they, but I'm teens in my church, but it's a very older generation church of that. It's like this is sedition, but it's just like, in my church we talk about this a lot. It's like, how can we get them in? And it's like, well, we can get them in by dropping barriers. What do they want to talk about? They want to talk about these things. We're talking about these things, and it's all the same thing, but it's just more. How can God community help me with whatever I'm dealing with right now?
Yeah. Have you been a part of communities or church groups or that have really done that, helped people to talk about what's important to them?
Yeah. And it's helpful because what I've learned is everybody has a story to tell. Our job is to listen to those stories and not, I still struggle, not judge it, not always give advice to it. I work with kids, and so a lot of it's just not advice anyway. They're not going to understand my adult advice. They're going to just want to be listening. But you reinforce what they're saying. Like, I use that in politics right now. Brene Brown wrote books about that kind of stuff. Human skill. People want to be heard. I did a talk one time about it, and just people want to be heard. They don't want to be, they want to be heard. So how do you hear people? How do you really begin to listen to them as you look at yourself and going, okay, what am I struggling with? Put it to the side and go, okay, what does that person really want? They want to be heard, and then you hear them.
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes a long time, and sometimes you have to tell them, okay, I heard you. Now you need to go figure out how to solve this problem because I can't give you an answer. So
Yeah. Well, and it's sort of my working thesis that not only do we need to hear people, but if, as you've articulated so beautifully, we're all the church, we're here with our manger, doing our work. We all have so much to share with each other, and we have so much to learn from each other.
Yeah.
Because we are the living embodiment of the church, not the. There's lots of beautiful things in the sacred texts that we read and in Swedenborg's writings, and those are words from the past, and we're the present. We're the current manifestation of the church. So how can we really listen to each other and learn about what God is doing right now? How is your listening going to what is God doing in you right now, if you were able to put words to that?
Just beginning to listen to what I need, just my own needs and my own wants, and not, I got them yesterday. Just we all have blind spots in our lives, and how do we knock those blind spots out? Is by knowing, okay, that's a blind spot. That my voice is telling me something that's not true. The ego, whatever you call it, is saying something to me that's not true. So how do I knock it down? Because sometimes so like going there, like, this is not true. Okay, this is not a true story. Like, I have friends who always tell me, you can change your story just like that. And it's hard because you want to create your own creating story, but you can't because you're so, I get kind of yesterday. It's like you get so wrapped up in the story, you're like, wait, this is not a true story anymore.
What helps you to identify when it's not a true story for you?
Talking to other people about it.
Yeah.
A lot of times just tapping into just reminding, just a lot of, energy play, raising up the vibrations of my being, and just being, okay, not a true story. What are you going to do about it?
Feel yourself going down a little bit, and you can feel that it's negative. Yeah. And then other people, they give you feedback about
right. And sometimes it's good or bad, but they're still teaching you. It's like, oh, wait, yeah, that person's not right. And then when you start getting in that, and it's tough because you want both. You want to rely on people, but you have to rely on yourself and your creator inside, because he gives you all the answers, but other people are around you too. So it's like,
yeah. It's complicated sometimes, but I love that you're pointing that out. That's that also feels to me like a really central tenet of the new church, is that, let's not get carried away by following after other people. Let's not lose ourselves looking for a savior outside. And that can be really important discernment. Realize when you're hearing something true, it's because it's true, not because this person has come to save you.
I heard a talk from another minister years ago when I was in Pennsylvania living on a radio, not our church, but another church. He talked about the idea that he was retiring. He said, I'm not your savior. The guy replacing me is not your Messiah. Don't put us on that pedestal, please. We're just people trying to do jobs here. And that just reminds me, we're just people on earth trying to do things.
Yeah.
It gets a little ugly when people judge that. And it's just like, if you just leave people alone and let them do what they need to do, things will get done.
Yeah. Interesting. Leave people. Well, it's so helpful to talk to you, because I'm just in this interesting mix of, I'm a new church minister, and I'm not anybody's savior, and I'm just trying to tend to my own church within, and it's my job to tend to this other church. I wonder how you hold that. Like, if you had, or I guess you've been to a lot of churches and you participate in one now, like, what makes that kind of community really nurturing in your mind, really positive?
Well, there's a lot of good ideas. Like the church that I go to, we have 2 ministers, but it doesn't mean anything, because way people come up too and preach, and we have a lot of different views, but we allow ourselves to be like, okay, we are going to come differently here, but we're all going to come together. We have food, we have communion, we talk to each other, we have 3 Bible studies in a row, and we're working to understand each other, and it's been helpful because it's building bridges it's welcoming people. It's not, it's hard because to explain Swedenborg into a human being sometimes is really complicated, and I don't think we've ever found answers. Curtis Child has found answers, but it's hard to find straight answers, and I think the best answer I can give people is, you got to do it. You got to live these tenements, and if we don't live these tenements, people are going to go, well, I'm going to go somewhere else because those tenements are being lived, and it's starting, it's just welcoming people. It's not judging them for who they are. I was born in a Denver church, and they don't judge, but they do a lot of like, you don't belong here because this, and this. And it's like, that's not your decision to make. That, it's that's why I think a lot of young people get turned off, because there's so many archaic rules, and it's hard to break those even in my own life, so I know because I have archaic rules. It's just, how do you come together to change people's mindset? You have to change the rules that they're following because they're not getting it. They're still, and you can't can't shake people and go, you gotta do this. They have to find themselves and go,
Yeah.
oh, wait, I'm doing this. What am I doing? How am I? You asked me earlier, how did I do it? I just one day woke up going, this is not working for me anymore. I've suppressed whatever it was, and this is just not who I am, and I need to start beginning to live that way because it's going to make me happier. It's going to make me more joy and more, happiness. He wants it. God, divine creator God, probably wants us happy. Written in 5 different chapters. It doesn't, it's like happy, happy, happy. It doesn't, he wants us to feel our emotions, don't get me wrong, but he wants us to feel the joy of, even the pain is a joy, even that's a joy because it's teaching us something.
The awe and appreciation of life that we can so often miss. Yeah.
And that's one thing that amazed me about Helen Keller, because I read her at the same time when I was in Boston College, and I read George Dole's Heaven and Hell at the same time, exact same time, and they both talk about the same thing.
Yep.
And it was just very good to compare both, but it just talks a lot about you can be in both places. You can have heaven on earth, and I said it before in my things, like we just don't see it because we're so, blind to just, I got to worry about the politics, I got to worry about the taxes I'm paying, I got to worry about the bills. I worry about that stuff too. Like, I got to worry about this, and this, and it's just not putting us in the divine moment. We need to be in the divine moment. And it's not easy because things distract us. It's like, I got to cook dinner, like after church, I got to do this, I got to go cook dinner, I got to go do groceries, I got to make sure Billy, Bobby, Susie go to school the next day. But it's not. And one of my favorite things about going to church is spending 10 minutes after I'm done, just sitting there for 10 minutes, enjoying just the moment, silent usually, but just the moment of the building that you're in, because you create the next thing you do.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. And while it's like a bit of a paradox to have this sense that church is within, but then we also have churches at certain times in certain places, I think the ways we do that is really important, just to remind us to stop every once in a while, remind us to look up, remind us to breathe. And sometimes I think the advent of social media and people like you, offering meditations on social media, and all these, the reality is there's new ways to invite each other into that present moment. And
I give us the church that I go to, we started zooming our services during pandemic. I helped create it. And it's actually made us stronger because we have people from New York and people from elsewhere who come, and people who go out of town and come and listen to us, and who can't drive every day, and they come and Zoom and they listen to what we're doing, and it's actually made us stronger. We didn't think it was going to, but we do Bible studies on there. We do most of church meetings on there when people can't show up, and it's actually made us. We were scared of it. We were totally scared of that community sense, but it got us to be. And sometimes we do fellowship that way, where people will have food and people be in a computer. It's sort of awkward. We don't do it very often, but we do it because we want people to feel like they're welcome.
Yeah. It's imperfect, but it's something. And, you talking about how we're, got to pay the bills and I got to bring the kids to school. Like, it does seem, and obviously I didn't live in the past, so maybe I'm making this up, but I think for a lot of us, it feels like life is more frenetic right now. There's more tasks, more, and there's all this fear, people aren't available on Sunday to go to church. Life is overwrought. And I think that's true. And yet there's still this deep spiritual longing, and there's this longing to be connected. And it feels like there's also more and more humans like you, discovering this church within and having that change of heart. It comforts me. Sometimes life feels really scary in the present moment, but I think there's a balance.
Yeah. The one thing I've learned from, my own church and working the physical church I work with, we've talked a lot about this is, just because they're not coming Sundays doesn't mean they're not coming. So if we have tours, we have music, we have music concerts, we have something. We have people who come online just for the studies only and not the church itself because but they're coming, and that for us has been the dramatic click of like, oh, they're coming though. They want something that's being taught here, and we just need to be like, okay, doors knocking. I mean, we still get caught up in, don't evangelize because we don't do that, but we're still we're balancing it a little bit. We're trying to grow and start stuff and start music series, start community events that we can use the building when we're not in it for stuff.
Mhm.
And we do that now, but it's still that's built our community. We have a Christmas pageant going 101 years now. Same,
101 years?
yeah,
Wow. Wow.
and it's the same pageant. We're kind of reducing it a little bit, but it's the
Yeah.
same pageant. And people just come for that. People just come to watch that live and leave, but they still love,
Mhm. Yeah. We got to let people accept people where they are and trust that God is working in them. And as you've discovered, as I've discovered, and we have churches, and we also can meditate on a nature walk. So there's a lot of different ways to discover this
Yeah.
love within and to tend to it. It's definitely my hope that part of what's growing is just more of that, and then a more of a community spirit, like it sounds like you have at your church, of supporting people in all the different ways that they connect to themselves and to God. Because it's a big life. There's lots of ways to do it.
Right. And the thing about it is that we, in the physical church I go to, we joke about this. We always have 27 people. It's just who we are. We have friends of the church and members, but it's
always
always come out
27.
at the same time. They drop out, somebody else comes in, but it's the same numbers. We get worried, but then we count Zoom too, and it's just magically people come. And people like Zoom, because they can just listen and be there, and we're not very high tech, but we do the best we can do, and it's just still working.
Yeah. So you mentioned some things that you feel help community, help to nurture the spirit, hearing different voices, having a real participation of different kinds of people in the community working together. What's your sense of what gets in the way of the flow of love in community?
I think a lot of it is when people start getting negative about things, politics, whatever it is, or I get this way, or the finances aren't going well, or whatever it is. I think it's just people's negative energies is just so hard to, like, I have that problem with people's negative energies. Like, I can go to work today and have a great day, and people's negative, like, and just, but people just, I think it's just that. I think it's the human nature of being worried. I mean, I get worried. We get worried so much about, oh my God, this is going to happen. We give power to other, and it's hard because, don't worship any other idols. They're by places. We did do it. Like, I got to worship. The one thing I love about the branch that we both belong to is that there's a higher level guy, but he doesn't really have a whole lot of freaking power. He just he has power, but he sort of says, "Well, you guys just go figure this out yourself." But but it's also like that, and it's just that sense of, I think a lot of what gets in the way is ourselves and our mass amount of ego that we know better than most people, that we can sit in a pulpit and go, my greatest sermon is going to be, God loves you in the back row, you too, and that's it. You just walk away, and that's all they need to hear sometimes.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree with you. Negative energies are really tricky. I did an interview a while ago with someone, and he shared his name's Carl, and he had a really great line that negativity has no end game. Like, negativity will just go and go and go and go. Right. So it's not like you can solve it, or you have to just turn away from it.
Media, whatever it is, and you just get bloated into this stuff, and like I can go to board meetings and association meetings and get dragged into it, but it's just like, I just want to be there to worship. And if you're there to worship, and the thing I've learned also is that other stuff is out. If you make it spiritual, it's a very different game. Like your business meeting for church, your money is spiritual. So when you worry about it, like, what, you don't trust that it's gonna, wait, our church has been broke because we trust that it's gonna come somehow, and it has, the association pay us, but we're still alive, because of them. We used to be resentful of them, but now we're just like, no, we thank you for this because you've really gotten us out of a hole, and we're, still here 10,000 years later. And we have free Bible studies going, and like,
sounds like you guys are very active.
That's it, and it's just like, that just hit me recently. Is that all that stuff is spiritual, and how it hit me was, if you don't express what you believe inside of you, the truth, you're really hiding from people. that, and you need to bless your mind like money spiritual, or we need to stop fighting about this issue because it's not.
Mm-hmm.
So it happened. Not like the people who, are dead who are going to come up to the grave and say, "Stop doing that." Like we had a retreat years ago where we talked about music. If I don't want the sort of the hippie music coming in, but it's just like you'll be dead. You won't know what music is happening in church because you'll be dead.
It's true, and it's we're here to change, as you started. We're here to change, and music tastes change, and all kinds of forms change, and how to allow the forms that you've created to change with the spirit. Yeah, that's really at the heart of what I'm trying to. The conversation I want to have with people is just like, I'm not saying the past was bad. I'm just saying we're here now, and what were our ancestors trying to do with what they did, and how do we do the same thing in the way that works now?
Right.
How do we carry that forward?
I tell people that it works. And a lot of times they just didn't know better, and I keep telling people that we judge that, but like we just didn't know better.
Yeah.
But you know what? They got us to here.
Yeah.
They would want us not to be stuck in the moment going, just move forward.
Yeah. Yeah.
All the old people in the church who were way older than I was when I was a kid, I remember they were all happy because they were like, yeah, we got into a fight, but just move forward.
Yeah.
Because it's not, it's not, there's nothing blessing you if you're just sitting there going, I don't like that person. Okay, I'm going to resent that person. And just that thing, just resentment, fear, anger, madness, it doesn't really help the situation. You can fight about it all day long, but in the end of the day, like I tell people, it's just a building.
Yeah.
This is like going to the school you work at, your job. It's just a job. It's not, it took me years to separate my spiritual life from my job. It's like, it's my job. I go there and I do my job. Come home, I'm done. I have a 3-day weekend. It's nice. I'm not complaining about it. And I only have a 3-day week next week because I have Friday off too. But it's just, it's a job.
Yeah. 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 And I don't know, our spirituality is kind of 24/7.
Yeah.
So the spirituality is all the time, but then sometimes you're practicing it in the form of church. Sometimes you're practicing it in the form of your work with children. And sometimes you're practicing at home, taking care of your own self.
And that's it. What I've wondered about it also is it's not like, like I use this quote. It's like a pile of goo. Sometimes your day is just going to be a pile of goo. It ain't going to be pretty. It's not going to look nice. No bow coming on. Sometimes you're going to have the best day in the world, and sometimes you're just going to have the most crap-ass day you ever had. And you're just going to go, okay, that wasn't very good.
Yeah.
Let's fix that problem, but just kind of go with it and go, okay, I have no idea what just happened.
Yeah.
But, like I've noticed friend Eric Kaufman, he talks a lot about how we do things, but we don't always know if they're right or wrong. So what do? We just keep doing them. And later on in life, we find, that wasn't the right thing to do. But we don't beat ourselves up about it. We just didn't know then, but we know now. Information changed. And it always stuck with me because it's right. It's like, instead of worrying about what your motive is, just do it, and then find out if your motive was wrong. You're like, that wasn't a very good motive. I was too selfish. You don't know until you know. Yeah,
but if we're focused on the process, we got to just do the next thing. Be in it, outside of any.
Yeah, I heard a quote, and I love it. You see it when you see it. You know it when you know it. You hear it when you hear it. And so sometimes when I'm listening to sermons, whatever, I don't hear everything. It's like you're just not ready to hear that yet. That's fine. You'll be ready when you're ready, and then you hear it. And it's just like sometimes you can just be like. Sometimes in church I listen all the time. Sometimes I'm playing in my phone. It's just don't beat yourself up. Your brain can only process so much information at one time.
Yeah.
And even scrolling in the social media is helping you relax because you can't be serious all the time. You have to have some,
Yeah.
some fun.
If the church is within, if the truth is within us, what we're longing to know kind of comes in at the time we're ready to know it. But if we're not ready to know it, then it just kings off. Yeah, that was a big one for me to learn as a minister, because I always wanted everybody to listen to every word I had to say, but they only hear the words that they need. And sometimes they hear words I don't even know that came out of my mouth
Right,
because,
and that's the thing. It's like, and you're also allowed to, like I always want, you're also allowed to play too. You're also allowed to have fun. Like that's what
yeah,
I like about
yeah,
my church. We do potlucks. We used to every week, but we do it every other week, every other. We just sit there for 2 hours with each other and just gab about whatever we talk about. But we just having food, or we do, some.
mm-hmm.
We started doing game days.
Mm-hmm.
We do games and just, and not just board meetings and boing clap, but it's just food, and people love that because they all bring potluck, and
Yeah,
it's just fun.
yeah,
We stopped doing it for a while because of the pandemic, but we started doing it again because it's just like it's bringing people together. People stay after. They want to socialize and
yeah.
laugh off and just.
And doing the important things of life, like eating
Yeah.
and
Mm-hmm.
drinking and sharing and
Right.
community. Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's one of the best parts about having a church community is the fellowship, the friendship. It's so important to being human. And while social media is beautiful and
Yeah.
allows for communication on a grand scale, sometimes it replaces, or we use it to replace our
Yeah.
need for connection. And I do wonder about that these days, kind of
Mm-hmm.
how to, just
Well,
I don't know if you can hear my
that's
children.
one of the things that we had was during the pandemic. Our church was Zoom only, so we would record music and whatever because we couldn't get in the building, and then we were trying to be safe, but we've had people who wanted that community too, so we did only one or the other, and then we decided we could do both. So that way, everybody can come because we have somebody who comes all the way from Arizona. I mean, so they can still be a part of the community without feeling like
Yeah,
we're kicking them out. And
yeah,
coming from New York, and it was just easier for us to do it that way.
yeah. That's awesome.
They can come to the Bible studies and feel like they're part of, and
Mm-hmm.
they're a member. He's a
Mm-hmm.
member now. He's from New York, but we allowed on our membership. We just did it. That we're going to do it. You're welcome. Come in. Don't worry.
It's really cool. And you help with the technology, so you help to make
Yeah.
all that happen.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
It's all self-run, but I'm too.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want somebody else wants the camera, but he does it with more control from his own house.
Oh, that's cool. That's very cool.
Yeah, it took us a long time to do it.
Yeah. It's work to open space for other people, but
Yeah.
it's worthwhile. Definitely feels like the pandemic, as hard as it was, it did make space for some new change.
Well, that's the thing. It's also like going back to people want to be heard. I think human conversation has changed so much. People want to be heard, and you can't really do it on social media. You can try,
Mm-hmm.
but I think that human touch and that human development, and I work with kids, and there's a fourth grade class who I don't only work with them briefly, but they were kindergarten. In kindergarten, they were in pandemic. They were online, and you can tell from just their emotional body language that it's really struggles for them. They're getting much better. The teacher's really good, but it's still,
They have to catch up.
they have to catch up. And the kindergartners are working now, fine, because they're crazy, but
Yeah.
they're getting it. But it's just,
Yeah.
I think that's the one thing, and it's hard. It's the one thing that human personal relational skills are something you need to teach.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard because so many kids are missing. Like I have to teach kids, don't hit him, don't
Mm-hmm.
do that. That stuff they just knew. Now it's like
Mm-hmm.
you're okay going, oh wait, they don't know it. Okay, so they don't know that? But what do I do to show?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's things that creating your own church is like you go, oh wait, I don't know that. I didn't know that either. So how did I learn how to not interrupt people? How did I want to socialize? You just started doing it.
Mm-hmm. It's hard to be a human.
And then you go to meetings and like you're in your head going, I don't really want to punch this person because I like them, but it's driving me crazy. But it's like, wait, why are they driving you crazy? Because exactly like you at some point, and you kind of remember that.
Well, that's a great shift. Is you're sharing how kids don't know. Kids are hitting each other and they don't know how, and to recognize that even as adults we have those impulses. We may be a little better at holding them, but we have the same desire for things to go the way we want them to go. Navigating all of that is really, really challenging. Mm-hmm. I always find, or what I'm coming to find, is it's all really, really hard. What the more I can be fully present in myself,
Yeah.
the easier it gets. If I'm in an environment where I can't fully be myself, it feels like nearly impossible.
Yeah, and that's a lot, what people like, I deal with it. Just like people are like, hey, how do you navigate this? Well, you don't, because you have to understand that social change, like, gay marriage, whatever it is, social change, stuff like that, took a long time to change the narrative.
Yeah.
It's just, we're still in 1965 and a lot of that stuff, but it's just going to take time. Don't judge it. People like kind of push, and I think it's just like, don't. Just give it. It's going to take those people some time. They've been thinking that way for so long.
Yeah.
And it's shifting mindset to people. I don't think that way anymore. Okay, I can love that person, no matter who they are, mind my own business, and go on my side of the street and take care of myself, and let them live their life. If we don't let people live their lives, they're gonna feel like, oh, it's just I can't.
Yeah.
I see that in politics now. Like, I'm suffocating and I can't feel it. And it's like, because you weren't allowed to express who you were. And I'm sorry, we said, nope, you can't think, can't do, can't act, can't believe. So now we're going to push you aside and say, well, sorry, opinion over, I'm going to rule. And it's like, no. The best decisions I've seen are the decisions made when everybody comes to agreement. That's why I like Quakers, because they don't all give each other that voice to talk. And it's just like, yep, that's maybe not the answer we all wanted, but it's the answer that came out.
To kind of accept that and move forward together is pretty powerful. Well, I love how you describe the need to be in process, the need for change, and a deep acceptance and there are some people that really are going to not want to change very fast, and that we have to coexist, and we can't force it. We can't force it. We have to all be kind of in the process we're in. But it sounds like for you personally, you're open to change. You're ready to be made new. Do you feel like you're being made new inside?
Yeah. It doesn't always look pretty, but then I have to remind myself who I was a year ago. Like someone told me a long time ago, you don't compare yourself to other people. Don't do that. Compare yourself to where you were a year ago, 6 months ago, a week ago. Look at yourself today, and you're like, I'm not dealing with this problem anymore.
I was going to say, are you willing to share a bit about who you were then and who you are now?
Yeah, I was back then. I was a lot more like very people pleasing, very shy, very awkward. And when I started making videos, eons and eons and eons and eons, I don't remember what the exact. It's on the blog somewhere. I wrote. It's on the blog somewhere. When I started writing, it opened me up to, wow, there's a lot to say there. There's a lot of pictures, a lot of videos, and I still get awkward about videos. I don't wait, I look, but now I just laugh at myself and go, well, the people who started doing this didn't smile very much, and you'll just get into it. But it's also, but it's just like, very shy, very, depressed. And then I lived a couple of years in Panathen, and in 1 year I just woke up going, this is not who I am. I moved back to Minnesota, and I was able to discover this. Taking the shell off is painful, but it's also, you're able to live in a authenticness to who you are. And when you do that, it's just like, whoa, what's happening? It's not supposed to be happening, but it's like someone always told me, you never know what it's like to be 46 because you've never been 46. It's like taking the shell off. You don't know what it's like to take the shell off until you take the shell off, and you're like, I'm not supposed to feel this way. It's like, wait, you're alive though. That's one, of course, I tell myself, you're alive. You're feeling depressed and happy and miserable and angry, but you're alive. You woke up this morning, and it's going to be a pile of good day because you're in a crappy mood. But don't take it on anybody else, but you're in a crappy mood. But just, even if you do, you're venting.
Yeah.
It's like two caged dogs fighting with each other. You just move on and go, okay, that wasn't pretty, but they're still talking to me. So
yeah, and it can help you have more compassion for other people when they're having their time to be struggling. Yeah. I like your pile of goo day. I'm going to use that one, I think. I've had my share of them lately.
Yeah, this is going to be a pile of goo.
Yeah.
I was sick 2 days before the holidays, and it was just like, it's just going to be a pile of goo day. Okay, I'm just not going to feel well. I'm not eating food. I'm, whatever. And but it's just, I mean, like this, the holidays, it just, like for me, it's always been a weird traumatic experience. But this year was like, I'm just going to celebrate the way I know how to celebrate. And not let those people ruin my mood or whatever it is, and I celebrated it that way, and it just made it beautiful. Like, we do a last service of it. Yeah, Advent season, we do a lesson in carol. We light all of we used to do a lot of candles every Sunday, but we just do it one Sunday now, and it's just a beautiful service for us because we're just reflecting on the light. It's like, yep, that's what we do all day.
I love that. I love that. Well, and you started there with the sanctuary of the manger inside, and that's just such a beautiful. We talked about the tempter. The tempter still comes, but then even the manger, like, just God enters in this humble way. In this very humble way, this dark night, and there's Herod is after him, and so there's just I relate to that sensation of what it means to be.
And
sometimes it's goo everywhere, but God is still being born somewhere in there.
And I think, like, somebody else said a really great quote I love about it is the idea that what happens inside of us right here is when we feel this weird, funky, sensational feeling. It's love, but sometimes it's also we feel torn and like, and whatever it is, that's us not being us because we know, we don't remember who, in Hebrew there's a great word, the word remembering who you are when you were a kid, and taking that moment. We've been talking a lot about that in church lately, but remembering who we are. Remember who you are, and your heart goes, oh, I remember who I am, and I can just keep shining my light no matter what, and it doesn't matter what I do. And that's what I'm sort of learning now is just keep doing it. Don't listen to whatever else everything else is telling you. You're a piece of crap, whatever it is. Don't shit on yourself, but just begin to go, I'm here, I'm alive, I'm breathing nicely, and just keep moving. Because I get stuck too. It's like I got stuck yesterday. It's like there's no right or wrong answer here. You're just
no shame or blame. And the minute you catch yourself, you're back.
Right.
So you can just catch yourself anytime in that process.
That's what one of my friends said a long time ago. If you weren't doing this, you'd be dead. And I don't want to be in the grave done. You're going to do this until they shovel the last piece of grave on you, and you're just going to keep going. Don't, Just keep going. It's not a marathon, not a race. There's no finish line.
There's no finish line. And sometimes it feels like, too, with Swedenborg's teachings about we're going to live forever and we're going to be growing forever. It's like, I hold that sometimes when I'm going through hard things, because it's like, okay, this is really hard, but maybe I'm doing some really important work that's going to help me in the future. Like, we don't know the.
I can't remind myself about that. You don't know until you know.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't know the stuff I went through was going to teach me how to be a better human being. Like the fear, the financial stuff, dealing with sexuality, whatever it was. And it was just dealing with all this stuff. And it got me stronger to who I am today because I went through it. Now I can go to the inner church. Even if I don't go Sunday morning, I'm still going to, it's freezing cold here, but in Minnesota, but I like to go walking, but it's really cold here. But still go outside with the dog for a little bit. Just, not take my phone with me and not, just enjoy nature and, I have a 3-day weekend. It's going to be freezing cold, but I can still enjoy being inside. And
we can give thanks for our lives, no matter what we've been through. And not only that, and I think this is part of what I'm hoping the Helen Keller Collaborative can be, is not only that, but like every one of us is just a precious jewel. There's not somebody that did all the right things and now they're like the most precious jewel. We're all so important, and we're all so beautiful. Yeah. We have different wisdom because of the experiences we've had. It becomes like the compost that our new self grows out of. Yeah, that's beautiful. I'm so glad we connected, and I'm so glad we are connecting. I feel like we're going to be on this journey for a while together, you and I. And I'm grateful for it. Any last words before we?
I think a lot of it is just, remembering that it's always a journey. That the good, the pile of goo is all part of teaching us who we are and what we do. And we think it's, oh my God, I'm going to panic. And then it's just like, no, don't panic. It's, there's still a light there waiting for you, waving at you, going, hi, I'm still here.
Yeah.
Captain of the ship, the quote I have, the captain of the ship hasn't left yet. I'm still driving.
Still driving.
You can go back over there now. Just, nope, I don't need you. Go over there.
That's a wonderful reminder. It's a journey. It's a process. We're continuing to grow.
Yep.
And there's this light that's always shining, or this captain that's always driving. Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for your time, Benjamin.
No problem. You too.
And I love it when we both are in